Hi guys, on today's Farrat Academy lesson we're going to look at, sort of based on elasticness again and bouncy things, what happens when we drop these balls on the ground and how we can sort of describe that behaviour. The first thing to look at is if we drop a normal tennis ball, it bounces up sort of the same height. If we drop two tennis balls one on top of the other, obviously that's not very well controlled, but we see there's not a lot of movement in that. The next is if we drop this football. Again, it bounces to a sort of normal height, and then again we'll try and drop one football on top of the other here, and you see again there's not a lot of movement in there. But something quite interesting happens if we drop a small tennis ball on top of a really big football, and you'll see that tennis ball has bounced a lot higher than it did by itself, or than the escaping football did by itself. And in a minute I'll talk to you about exactly why that happens.
Hi there everyone. So now we're going to take a little bit of time, as we said outside, to discuss why we saw what we did when we dropped the tennis ball and the football, and why that tennis ball bounced up so high. The first thing that we need to think about when we're looking at objects are that generally big things have more energy than small things. So at the top of the page here we've got a man who's got a little dog running towards him, and that little dog doesn't have very much energy, so that means that the man there is able to stop the dog and give it a cuddle or a pet. The guy at the bottom, however, is being chased by a very big elephant, and now if he turned around and tried to stop that elephant, because it's so big and so heavy, it would just squish him, so he's running away. In terms of our sort of example, what this means is that our football, which is bigger than our tennis ball, when we drop it, will have more energy. If we drop the tennis ball and the football, what we saw in the video was that while the football has more energy, that doesn't necessarily mean it bounces a lot higher. Both objects will hit the ground and bounce to a little bit less than where they started. And so the fact that the football had more energy didn't mean that it bounced a lot higher, because it was a lot heavier to get moving, and moving things takes energy. What we also have to think about in this example is that things can also share energy and give energy to other things. So when we drop the footballs one on top of each other, what we saw was that the football at the bottom didn't bounce back up very high, but the football at the top actually bounced almost as high as where we dropped it from. Now what happened here was that the football at the bottom that was being squashed gave some of the energy it has to the football at the top, and that's why it went back up higher. Now it didn't work in the video because they're very small, but if we drop the two tennis balls and they land perfectly, in theory we see something very similar, where the tennis ball on the bottom gives energy to the tennis ball on the top, which causes it to bounce higher. Now, what was crazy in the video we took was that when we drop a very small tennis ball onto a very big football at the same time, the football gives all of its energy, or a lot of it, to the tennis ball. And because the football has so much energy and it's giving it to a very small and very light tennis ball, it throws the tennis ball way high into the air. And we saw the example that we saw. Now you can try it at home if you have anything else, like rubber bouncy balls are really good for this because they're very springy, or a basketball perhaps is also really useful for demonstrating this sort of thing. Another example that you might want to try at home is what would happen if we flipped them over and dropped the heavier football on top of the less heavy little tennis ball at the bottom. And maybe that's one you can try out at home, and let us know what you find out. Thanks very much for listening today, everyone. Cheers.